Have you ever noticed how something so simple, like a drawing, can hold so much meaning?
Yeah.
That's how I felt when I first saw Hello, World, Life in Space.
Yeah.
It's by this artist, T9LNED, and it's really caught my attention.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it about?
It started as just a digital sketch on an iPad, pretty simple.
Huh.
The artist actually mentioned they created it when they were feeling overwhelmed by all the news. Like just needing something to ground them.
Oh, yeah. I can relate to that. A little reminder of what's important.
Exactly. And it's all about these fundamental ideas, which is what we're diving into today.
All right, let's explore it. What kind of ideas are we talking about here?
So one of the big ones is this idea of space, but not just outer space.
Okay, so more than planets and stars.
Right. The artist actually defines it as both the physical world, like everything around us, and also the space of our consciousness where all our thoughts come from.
Wow, that's a really expansive way to think about it.
It is. And it really sets the stage for this whole cycle that the artwork depicts. It's this journey that just keeps going, starting in the top left corner.
A cycle, so it's not a linear progression.
No, it's more like a loop. So it goes to these different states that are triggered by an event. It's constantly changing and evolving.
I'm starting to see how this image can be so deep.
Right. And in this deep dive, we're going to try to unpack all of it. We want to understand what this cycle means, and hopefully you can get something out of it too. Maybe some new insights into your own life.
Sounds good to me. Where do we even begin with something like this?
Well, the starting point is pretty clear. It's labeled Individuals Exchange Idea.
Seems straightforward enough, people sharing their thoughts.
Exactly. It's like the foundation for everything else in the cycle.
Okay, so ideas are being exchanged. What happens next?
The next step is actually super interesting. It's just this little symbol, open.
Just open. That's kind of cryptic.
It is, but it's a really powerful prompt. It's all about being receptive to these ideas, being open-minded. The artist even talks about opening your heart to what others are saying.
So it's not just about listening, it's about really taking it in and considering it.
Yes. Without that openness, it just becomes people talking past each other, not really engaging.
That makes a lot of sense. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of opinions clashing without any real progress.
Exactly. And this openness is so important because the next stage is where things get really mixed up.
Oh, what happens then?
It's called prism of idea, mixed and individual. Imagine all these different ideas being thrown into a prism like light. They all blend together and create something new.
Okay, I'm visualizing it. So it's about the way these ideas interact and influence each other.
Yes. And what's so cool is that the artist contrasts this with people who try to enforce a single perspective. They say, don't mix, but that just leads to this limited view, like a single color.
Huh, so mixing is essential to seeing the full picture.
Right. The real value comes from encountering all these different ideas and integrating them.
It's like instead of having just one crayon, you suddenly have the whole box.
Exactly. And resisting that mixing is like choosing to see the world in black and white when you could be experiencing all the colors.
Wow, that's a great analogy. It really highlights how limiting it can be to shut out different viewpoints.
And, it makes you think about how often we're pushed to think a certain way, right?
Yeah. Like there's this pressure to conform to a specific ideology or worldview.
Exactly. This stage of the cycle is all about pushing back against that. It's about embracing the richness that comes from engaging with different perspectives, even if they challenge our own.
It's like a reminder that learning and growth often come from stepping outside our comfort zones.
So true. Okay, we've exchanged ideas, been open to them, and now they're all mixed up inside us. What's next in this journey?
Let me see. All right. The next stage is labeled Notice, Observe, Self.
This is where things get really introspective.
So it's about turning our attention inward.
Yes. It's all about becoming aware of your own thoughts, observing them without judgment, almost like you're watching someone else think.
That sounds challenging. Our thoughts can be so chaotic sometimes.
They can be, but the artist emphasizes this idea of detaching yourself from your thoughts. You're recognizing that your thoughts, idea, and your core self are separate things.
Oh, interesting. So it's about not identifying so strongly with every thought that pops into our heads.
Exactly. Because the thing is, our thoughts are constantly changing. They're influenced by our experiences, our upbringing, everything around us.
That's true. Our thoughts aren't fixed or permanent. They're like clouds passing through the sky.
I love that analogy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why this detachment is so important. When we cling to our thoughts as if they define us, we can get really defensive when they're challenged.
Oh yeah, I've definitely been there. Any criticism feels like a personal attack.
Right. But when we can create that separation, we can approach these challenges with more calmness and understanding.
It's like creating a buffer zone between our ego and the situation.
Exactly. And the other artist gives this really great example of how this detachment can play out in a conversation. It's like, oh, you think that? Interesting. Well, here's what I'm thinking. Maybe we don't agree, but how can we move forward?
I like that. It's a much more constructive approach than just arguing and digging our heels in.
Right. It turns the interaction into an exploration of different perspectives rather than a battle of egos. And it all starts with that ability to notice your thoughts and create some distance from them.
It sounds like a valuable skill to cultivate, for sure.
It really is.
Huh.
Okay, so we've become more aware of our thoughts and hopefully created some space from them. Where does that lead us next?
Let's see. The cycle continues to still in storm.
This one sounds like a real challenge, especially in today's world.
Yeah, finding stillness when everything feels so chaotic. How is that even possible?
Well, the idea is that you can cultivate this inner sense of calmness even when you're surrounded by turmoil. It's not about ignoring the storm, but finding that point of peace within it.
Like the eye of the hurricane.
Exactly. It's about finding that center, that grounding point.
But how do you even begin to do that? Like, are there specific techniques or something?
You know, the artwork doesn't really give specifics. I think it's more about highlighting the importance of cultivating this inner stillness however you can.
So it's about finding what works for you, whether it's meditation, spending time in nature, or something else entirely.
Right. The key is in the find, actively seeking out that stillness. And from there, the cycle takes us even deeper.
Deeper. Where do we go from finding stillness?
The next stage is simply sink. It's like descending further into yourself, going beyond just observing your thoughts to really immersing yourself in that inner space.
Okay, I'm picturing it like diving deep into the ocean, going beneath the waves and the surface noise.
Perfect analogy. It's about moving past those surface level distractions and anxieties to connect with something deeper and more fundamental.
And what awaits us in those depths?
Well, that's where we reach a truly profound realization. The next stage is labeled connected underneath.
Connected underneath. What does that mean?
It's the understanding that despite our apparent separateness, like individual islands on the surface, we are all interconnected beneath it all. There's this shared foundation, this common ground that unites us.
That's beautiful. It's like remembering that we're all part of something much larger than ourselves.
Exactly. And this realization can have a huge impact on how we interact with the world and each other.
It definitely shifts your perspective, knowing that we're all in this together.
And from this place of deep interconnectedness, guess where the cycle takes us?
Back to the beginning.
You got it. Start individuals once again exchanging ideas.
But this time, it's different, right? We're bringing that awareness of interconnectedness with us.
Exactly. Ideally, this awareness informs our interactions, making us more empathetic and understanding.
It's like we've come full circle, but with a newfound depth and perspective.
The artist does acknowledge that it's hard to always remember this connection, though. They even say, sometimes forget, confidence disappears. It's a very human thing.
It is. We can intellectually understand something, but living it consistently is a whole other challenge.
So true. But they also point out this underlying yearning for that connection, which I find really hopeful.
Me too. It shows that even when we forget, that desire for unity is still there.
So to recap this whole journey, we start with exchanging ideas, hopefully with open minds. Then these ideas mix within us, and we become aware of our thoughts, detaching from them. This allows us to find stillness even amidst chaos, leading us to sink deeper and realize our fundamental interconnectedness. Finally, we return to that exchange of ideas, but now enriched by this profound understanding. It's a pretty amazing framework for understanding our lives and interactions.
It is. It takes something seemingly simple, like exchanging ideas, and reveals all these layers of depth.
And I love how the artist acknowledges their own struggles with navigating this cycle. They're not claiming to have mastered it, but they're aspiring to get better.
That's relatable. It reminds us that it's an ongoing process of growth and learning.
And I think the key takeaway here is the power of having this visual representation, this mental map of the cycle. It gives us something to refer to when we feel lost or overwhelmed.
Totally. It's like a guide for navigating the complexities of life and our inner worlds.
So as you've been listening today, I'd encourage you to think about where you are in this cycle right now.
Yeah. Which stage resonates with your current experiences?
Are you in a phase of intense idea exchange? Are you struggling to detach from certain thoughts? Are you seeking stillness amidst a personal storm? How might becoming more aware of this cycle, this hello world, life in space, offer you a new perspective on your own life?
It's given me a lot to think about, that's for sure.
Me too. It's amazing how something so visually simple can spark such deep reflections. And it makes you wonder how many other profound insights we might be overlooking in our everyday lives.
You know, you're right. It's a reminder to stay curious and open to the unexpected because you never know where those moments of insight might be hiding.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us on this exploration.
Thanks for having me. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those minds open.
And remember, we're all connected underneath.
See y'all soon.